Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sneha, I'm a freelance makeup artist based in London, and I've been getting a lot of requests over the last few months to talk about my favorite brushes. So today I'm going to be talking about all my favorite eye brushes, and I do not have eye makeup on just so I can demonstrate all or most of these brushes as I use them. So let's get started. So first I'm going to talk about cream eyeshadows. So they can be in stick format like this or in pot format like this. So either or are cream eyeshadows. For these kind of products, what I tend to use is the Refer number 12, which looks like this. So it's a stiff dome-shaped brush, quite dense, and good to pick up product from the pot or from the stick and apply it to the eyelid, and also buff out the edges, which I'll show you in a second. Also keep in mind that these specific brands or specific brush numbers may not be available to you locally, depending on where you're watching from. But just look at the generalized shape, the density that I'm talking about, and try and find something similar either in your existing brush collection or the next time you're in the market to look for a makeup brush. So don't restrict yourself to the brands or the numbers that I mentioned. I mean, if you have access, definitely get them. They are great brushes, but if you do not have access, don't fret, just try and find something similar in the brushes or the makeup brands that are available to you. Okay, back to this brush. So for this demo, I'm going to be using the by Terry eyeshadow stick. This is the shade 103 Matte Toffee. So with these, yes, I'm aware you can scribble it on the eyelid and then buff it out, but this is the method I like because this gives me a little bit more control over what part of the eyelid I have the eyeshadow on. So if I'm looking here, I have my mirror right here. So what I'm doing is just running the tip of the brushes on the eyeshadow. So you can see I've picked up the cream shadow. I'm going to start with the most intensity close to my lashes. And then whatever's remaining, I can run it around the socket, and I can also run it along my bottom lash line, especially when I want like a diffused eyeshadow look. So once this is done, I'm a bit particular about the blend, especially on the top right here. So then I tend to go in with something like this. I'll talk about the brush in a second. Before the eyeshadow sets, I just need to buff out the edges. So that's how I like to use cream eyeshadow sticks or pot eyeshadows, if that makes sense. That's like a quick wash of color all over the eyelid and done. So as you saw, I tend to use one kind of brush to apply and buff out a little bit on the top and the bottom. And then I go in with a second brush, which is like a fluffier eyeshadow blending brush, something with more of a flat edge instead of something tapered. And then I use that to run it along the edges of the eyeshadow to get a smooth blend. Another brush that I use for a similar purpose is the Real Techniques base eyeshadow brush, so something like that. MAC 217 will also work, so anything similar in shape like this. This one, by the way, I think is Morphe E17. Next, I wanted to show you how I apply a liquid eyeshadow. So what I would define as liquid eyeshadow is anything that comes in these kind of tubes. So this, the Eldridge Liquid Lurex, the Gen Z, any of those kind of liquid eyeshadows, I guess. So this is the Giorgio Armani shade 9S. So I'm just going to add like a spotlight to the center of this eye, not using the wand directly, just because I like to use these products in my kit as well. So I'm just applying some on the back of my hand using this flat brush. We'll talk about the brush in a second. I'm just going to use the flat brush on its side to apply it just to the center of the eyelid. You can apply it all over the eyelid, but I'm just going to apply it to the center right here. So coming back to the brush, this is the Refer number 21. Very thin and flat, great for picking up cream products. You can also use this if you want to maintain the same brush, just to apply a little bit of eyeshadow to the inner corner of the eye for that subtle highlight. But then I do tend to prefer other brushes for that. So we'll get to that. So these were the brushes I tend to like, these kind of shapes for cream and liquid eyeshadows. Now let's move on to powder eyeshadows. So for the demo, I'll be using my Viseart eyeshadow palette. This is the Praline Itondo, which looks like that. So it has a good mix of mattes and shimmers. So I tend to use something large, still fluffy, kind of a brush with a flat edge. This is the My Kit Go 1.15 My Blending Shadow Large. So this kind of a brush I tend to like when I want like a light wash of color all over the eyelid, or when I especially go in with my transition shades. So something close to my skin tone. So for this example, I guess, going to be first going into the second shade right here. Going to use that as a transition. So right here. Because of the large size, it's quick and easy and covers a large area all at once. So I get a nice smooth transition right there. Also run it along my lash line for a quick, or the eyelid, I guess, for a quick wash of color. These kind of brushes are also great at the end of a look. Say, for example, here I want to still further buff out the edges. You can always go in and do that right there. Next, I also like to use crease brushes. That's for defining the socket, applying eyeshadow underneath, especially if I want like a large diffused look under the lower lash line. So it's these kind of brushes. So either like a MAC 217, so something similar to this, where it's flat yet fluffy, I guess. And then this one, which comes to a nice tapered point. This is the My Kit Go Pro 1.12, my tapered crease brush. So for this example, since we've already used this kind of a shape, I'm going to show you the demo with the My Kit Go brush. So I'm using, say, this shade right here. Also, when I'm picking up eyeshadows, I'm not digging into the eyeshadow, and I'm literally just doing a couple of taps like that. That's it. Especially with Viseart eyeshadow, they're quite pigmented, so I don't need to load up my brush a lot. And you can also do this kind of an action, and that kinds of takes away the excess eyeshadow that's sitting loosely on the bristles, and that might have fallout on the face. So that's another tip. So with this, I'm just looking straight into the mirror, finding my socket, and just doing windshield wiper back and forth motions. But you saw that I first laid the product here. So this is where I want the maximum color payout. So that's where I first touch the bristles. Another tip is do not ever blow onto the brush. It's like a no-no, especially for a makeup artist, or if you're doing makeup on anybody else but yourself. Even on yourself, why would you want to put germs on your eyelids from your mouth, I mean? So avoid it. So you can see that's given me a nice soft definition in my socket. I can also use this brush for underneath, but I want to use and show you a different brush, so I'm not going to do that. But imagine I had eyeshadow, you can easily run it. It'll give me a nice diffuse look, quite like this eye. Maybe I can show you on this eye. So if I take the eyeshadow, I can run it along my lower lash line like so. So that's this particular brush. Then we move on to more specialized, I guess, or more defined crease brushes, I guess. So it's these differing in size and density depending on how defined the look I want. So this is like the baby version of what we used in the crease. This is my Kit Go Pro 1.14, my detailing crease. So if we compare it to the previous brush, it's like the baby version of that. Okay, and then these two are smaller, so it's good for any detail work, so like a cut crease, or you want to define close to the lash line, outer V along the bottom lash line. These are excellent brushes. This gray one is the My Kit Go 1.16, my tapered smudge, and this is my Kit Go 242, my precise crease brush. So any of these will work. I'm going to show you first with this one how you can intensify the socket. So I'm going in with the same brown shade that we used in the crease, but because I'm going to use a smaller brush, I'm going to get more denser payoff in terms of color, but in a smaller area compared to the previous blending brush, if that makes sense. So because it covers a larger area, it diffuses the eyeshadow on a larger bit, whereas this is going to keep it narrower, closer to the socket, or where I place it, I guess. So going into the same shade, again tapping off the excess, looking down, going right into that crease. Hopefully you can see the color buildup. I can definitely see the shade. It is quite close to my skin tone. It's not very dark. So maybe I should go into a deeper shade to show you more intensity. So I'm using a deeper shade. You can see how close to the socket it places the color. So after I've placed the color where I want with this brush, I tend to go back in with the blending brush we used and then buff out the edges with the previous shade, so there are no harsh edges, like so. And again, with the same brush, you can go into a darker shade. So the two shades that I'd used for the crease were this initially, then went in with this, and now I think I'm going to use the shade to deepen up the outer corner. But before that, I also want to show you how this will apply eyeshadow underneath the lower lash line. So I'm using the second brown shade we used in the socket, go into that and apply it to the bottom lash line, connecting it with the eyeshadow on top. So hopefully you can see that. I could use the same brush, but I just want to show you another brush as well. So going in with the 1.16 brush, which looks like this, picking up now the darker shade from the palette, which is that dark brown. And this I can use to apply along the bottom lash line, along the top lash line as an eyeliner, or intensify the outer corner. So let's do that. So intensifying the lower lash line first. I tend to load the color only on the tip of the brush, not on the side. So you can see that it's given me light definition there. And then if I were to add this to my outer corner there, I can give like a smudged eyeliner look as well. And then go back in with the slightly bigger brush just to buff out the edges. So that's like a soft eye look. I can obviously build the intensity, but I'm going to keep it here so I can also show you some demo with eyeliners. By the way, if you're finding these videos helpful, definitely give this video a like and also consider subscribing for more such videos. Next, let's talk about flat brushes. So these are some sizes of brushes that I tend to use. They vary in terms of thickness and also the density and how, I guess, the thick the brush is or big the brush is. So depending on what kind of shadow I'm using, how much pickup I want, if I want a lot of control, then I'll go in with my Esom W21, I believe, yes, W21. Or if I want something quite dense, then I will probably use my Sonia G Builder 2 brush. So it just depends, but this is the style and the shape of brush that I tend to use for especially picking up shimmers and applying it on the mobile eyelid. So for today's demo, I think I'll show you the Esom brush. So let's say we pick up the shimmer right here. With this brush, I'm going to use it on its side, so like that. Again, just a couple of swipes, tap off the excess, then you can tap it on the mobile eyelid. Again, with these, you can also use a mixing medium with it to get more intensity from the eyeshadows. There you go. Next, I want to talk about some liner, definer, tight lining, smudging, that kind of brush, anything close to the lash line, basically. So it's these teeny tiny brushes. This first one is an angled, tiny liner angle brush by My Kit Go 1.17. This is the Refer 29 brush. And lastly, this is one of the newer brushes that My Kit Go is launching. This is the 253 My Precise Smudge Brush. It's not launched yet. I think next year they're going to launch this brush, early next year. So these are the brushes I tend to prefer. So let me show you these three brushes in action. These two I can use for both tight lining and also for an eyeliner, especially if I want to do it either with a powder eyeshadow like a dark brown or a black eyeshadow close to the lashes, or if I want to go in with a kajal liner but I want to get more control where I place it. So for example, say I want to get close to the lash line in the inner corner right there. So I'm going to load it up with the dark brown shade we used on the outer corner and just tap it along here. So it's instantly filled in that area without looking like a liner, which I really like. So this is great for tight lining, going close to the lash line. So this I tend to prefer to use with gel liners, pencil liners, or even powder eyeshadows. So I'm going to show you maybe a little bit of demo with Victoria Beckham Satin Kajal Liner. This is a new shade I picked up, Bordeaux. So I can go in straight from here, from the pencil I mean, but if I want a really fine line in the inner corner and the outside corner, I will move to using this brush. So I'm going to fill in, say, the middle part, like so, and then go in with the brush, take some, and then really stay close to the lash line on the inner corner, and then also on the outer corner. There you have it. And the new brush by My Kit Co. This one I tend to like, especially if I've got kajal in my eyeline, sorry, waterline, and then I like to smudge it very close to the lash line. This is a beautiful brush for that. Or if I have an kajal liner close to the lashes, but I want it soft and smudged out, this is an excellent brush. So I'm going to add some of this Hilton eyeliner in the shade Pecan. I'm going to add that to this waterline. And then use this brush just to smudge it close to the lash line. So you get more like a smoked out, diffused kind of a look. Or if I were to say, add a few dots here and then go in with the brush, you can have like a smoked, smudged, soft liner look on this eye. Like so. Next, onto the inner corner of the eye. Again, very similar shapes and sizes, but a few different options for you. The black one is Refer 03. The one next to it is Pack 133, available in India. And this one is a Hakuhodo brush. The number, sorry, is unfortunately rubbed off, but very similar to these two brushes. And the last one is My Kit Co Pro 1.24, my mini smudge brush. So maybe for the demo, I'm going to show you with the My Kit Co brush. Going in, say, for example, with this light shimmer, picking some on the tip of the brush, and then just applying it to the inner corner. You can obviously make it bigger in the inner corner, but I tend to prefer it quite localized. Then for mascara, I have these two brushes, both by My Kit Co. I tend to use the larger one for the top lash line, which is the My Kit Co Pro 1.25. And this one is a new purchase, but it's like a narrower, denser version of this one, which is My Kit Co 301 My Defined Lash. So hopefully you can see the difference in the two brushes. So the smaller one I tend to like to use with the bottom lashes, whereas the larger one, fluffier one, I tend to like to use it on the top lashes. And that is definitely on clients. Personally, I just tend to use the mascara wand. So let's maybe do a demo with the smaller one, which is the newer brush for me. From the wand, I can pick up some mascara. And I can get really to the root of the bottom lashes and really extend it and go all the way to the tip as well. It's also great to get to the little lashes in the inner corner compared to a regular wand. So you'll find lashes that you never knew existed when you switch to using this. Again, this is more of a detail work. For maybe an everyday person, you do not need such kind of a brush. Or say, for example, you have really small bottom lashes and you struggle with mascara getting on your bottom eyelid or the under eyes, you can try using one of these brushes to avoid that. So it gives you a lot of control. Next, for liquid gel liners, these are the kind of brushes I tend to use. Some are more thin pointed brushes, whereas the others are, some are similar to the eyeliner or the smudging brushes that we've seen, but different sizes, I guess. So let's talk about these ones first. So this one, the left one, is Spectrum KJH brush number 23. Lovely. I also love using this for brows and definitely for angle liner. great to get a beautiful wing at the outer corner. Similarly, these two brushes are also excellent. This is my Kitco Pro 1.11 my tiny liner brush, and this is 1.17 my tiny angle brush. So very similar in shape, especially the first and the third one, but they are beautiful tiny brushes to get detailed liner work. So maybe I'll add a wing to this side of the eye. Use, since I've already shown you a demo with that, let's use the KJH brush. I'm going to use this longwear paint pot in Black Mirror from MAC. So just loading up the brush like so. So you can see how sharp of a line you can get with this brush. And there you have it. Lovely defined eyeliner. So I think having good brushes definitely makes my life easy. Not just applying makeup on myself, but definitely on my clients. And then these are the other type of eyeliner brushes that I tend to like. Very thin with a pointed tip. The one on the left here is my Kitco 1.36, my art liner brush. And this is the my Kitco 262, my Feliner brushes. So these are very good, especially with, say, for example, I'm using the Danessa Myricks Color Fix to add a liner, or any of the pot liners, so like Inglot gel liner, Bobbi Brown gel liner, any of those potted gel liners, or in any kind of squeeze tube, or even a liquid liner. These are the ones I tend to prefer to use. I do have eyeliner already on both eyes, so, but this is standard, so just like a typical eyeliner. I would just load the brush with the product and then start with the middle, go into the inner corner, and then create the wing, and then connect it like so. But it's good with the tip is that I can go in and extend the tip for a really fine edge to the liner, if that makes sense. So these are my picks for that. So these were my favorite eye brushes. If you have any questions about any of these brushes, please leave it in the comment section below. Or if you'd like me to talk about other brushes, say for example blush brushes, foundation brushes, brushes for under the eye for concealer, or brow brushes, so just let me know and I can make another video for that. But I really hope this video was helpful to some of you guys, especially those of you asking for this video. And as I said before, don't fret about not finding the exact brand or the number of the brush, especially if some brushes can be discontinued. Brushes seem to evolve within a brand, so just try and find something similar in shape. And also please keep in mind that these work for a certain eye shape or aesthetic that I have in terms of my makeup artistry, and also in terms of what kind of makeup I tend to use. I'm not someone who does a lot of cut creases or anything too creative, I guess, or avant-garde. So please keep that in mind. These are just brushes that I tend to prefer. It may not be favorites for other artists, so to each their own. But I really hope this was helpful to some of you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!